Hello and welcome to the Ultimate Farming Guide for 2026. Today I'm going to be going over an entire garden guide, post-greenhouse update, starting from early game all the way to end game. I've put timestamps for each section, but I define early game as nothing, mid game as like melon through squash armor, and then end game at fermento and above. To be honest though, I recommend watching the entire video because I go through every optimization throughout certain parts of the video, so you definitely won't want to miss out. I feel like there's a lot of guides that are too focused on endgame due to recency bias and don't really help players out who aren't up to date with everything. I also have a separate section at the end with really important greenhouse information and some pest farming stuff too. I put a ton of effort into this video, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. Also, follow my Twitch down below in the description. I do a bunch of Hypixel rank giveaways, so I'd definitely check it out. It's completely free and means the world to me. Anyways, let's get into the video. So for the early game, you'll unlock Sam at Skyblock level 5, where if you talk to her, she'll teleport you to the garden, where you're just going to be doing some very simple quests. And the first place you'll find her is in your island. After you complete these quests, she doesn't really play much of a role after this. At the start, you'll only be able to farm wheat, but you can unlock more crops as you level up your garden. You can level up your garden by getting garden EXP. This can be either done through crop milestones or visitor offers. As for the tools and equipment you'll be using at the start, there really isn't anything unique. The first armor set that you can use with farming fortune is either the farm armor or farm suit. Farm suit is unlocked earlier than the farm armor, but both are pretty mid anyways. I wouldn't recommend putting too much investment into these because you'll replace them pretty soon, but if you are wondering what to wear at the start, these are the two options, and I believe they are unlocked in the wheat collection. I will say though, it is recommended as soon as you can to attain the specific tool for the crop. Each crop has a designated tool, and you can buy this with 250 copper each at the Sky Mart. You just buy the desk here. Might look a bit different because my thing is a pineapple, but the desk is all the same. And as for the enchant, Axes uses Sunder, and then a hoe uses Harvesting. I would say, since you are starting out, I recommend getting the basic gardening hoe and then the advanced gardening hoe. A total of 25 copper, which is really easy to get. It's good because it gives fortune, but it isn't as much as the specific designated tools for the crop. But it does well for a good majority of the game until you actually start focusing up on stuff. But I do recommend that. I do want to say that they did add an ultimate enchant for tools. You can see here that they added crop fever. It's kind of like the old mechanics that they used in the garden for the pumpkin dicer. So what it does is while breaking crops, you have a 0.001% chance per level of crop fever to trigger a crop fever, which lasts for 60 seconds. And during this crop fever, the player gains 100 farming fortune and 15% chance for rare items such as crappie, squash, fermenta, and helianthus. And each crop broken has a chance to grant additional crops. So it's pretty good, but as an Ironman, you won't get it for a while. And as a normal profile, just buy it off Bazaar. So you'd see me mention copper earlier. Copper is kind of like the currency in the garden. You can get them through completing these visitor offers. So basically, visitors will come to your garden and they'll offer you some sort of, reward. You have to give them a certain type of crop. A visitor will never ask you for a crop you haven't unlocked yet, so at the start you'll only be asked for wheat, but as you unlock more crops, they'll ask for different types of crops, so be aware of that. Starting off, the only pet that you should really be using is the rabbit pet. I don't think it's really important to use a pet that gives you farming fortune, and this is mainly because of the fact that you want to focus on progressing your gear instead of getting more crops, because if you're looking for money, there's definitely better ways to make money than early game farming. So the best pet for you now is a rabbit pet. So I'm pretty certain at the rare rarity where it's name is blue, you get the farming wisdom boost, and at level 100 it grants 30 farming wisdom. So it's saying that for every thing you do that gives you farming XP, you'll gain 30% more farming XP from the base. So it's pretty good. And I recommend staying the rabbit for quite a while. Here's the recipe for rabbit, enchanted egg and raw rabbit. So it's very simple. So I'd mentioned earlier crop milestones to be able to level up your garden. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So if you go over to the desk and click garden milestones, you can come over and see crop milestones. And basically what it is for a certain amount of crops that you break and attain into your inventory, you put some progression into the crop milestone. And at a certain amount of crops farmed, you reach a milestone. You can see here that the rewards are garden experience, farming experience, and Skyblock EXP. You will not be getting 50,000 for your first crop milestone, but as you progress, it caps out at 50,000. I'm pretty certain that for the first thing, it's for the first 100 wheat, you get your first crop milestone. But I do want to mention that if you are farming wheat, it might not be at the garden for the first time. So these crop milestones only apply if you're in the garden, not when you're in the barn or somewhere else like that. Now let's talk about the composter. So the composter sits right here inside your little hut or whatever. And basically what it is it's used to create compost. Now, compost is actually pretty important as it upgrades a lot of stuff in the garden. You won't be able to see it now, but there are things like plots where you require a ton of compost, and then also your greenhouse, which I'll talk about later. But just understand that compost is very important, so focus on upgrading that. If you want to upgrade it, there's a button called composter upgrades, and it requires a certain amount of copper plus like a type of crop. But also, to be able to use it, you need fuel and organic matter. So organic matter is literally anything, like any type of crop. And fuel, it's kind of hard to describe it, but it's anything that seems like fuel. In the description, it'll say like provides fuel. So for example, I've found that the easiest one to get is sunflower oil, at least for me. For you, I don't actually know how you're supposed to get it. They do sell fuel here at the Skymart. It's not really that great to buy it like that. There are definitely other ways. Like I had a ton of fuel from when I did mining progression, but I would say, you know, if you want to, you can try to get some fuel from the Skymart. But as for now, I definitely don't really know the best type of fuel early game. So I kind of skimmed over the plots thing, but there are plots here. You can put a type of crop in each plot, and to unlock it, you have to use compost. So this kind of shows why compost is pretty important, because obviously more plots equals more crops being able to be farmed. Every time you unlock a crop, like you buy it from here, you have to actually go to the plot and then clear it. I'm pretty certain there's a tutorial at the start, so you understand this, but I just wanted to let you know again. So at garden level 5, you'll unlock pests. And when you do unlock pests, you'll be given a vacuum. I'm pretty certain that you'll have to come over here as like a quest and unlock these guys. I'm pretty certain he hands you a vacuum, like the base level. And so basically what pests are is every time you farm a crop, if you hold tab here, you can see that there is a place that says pests, and there's a cooldown. And if the cooldown says ready, then every time you break a crop, you have a chance to spawn a pest. They can also spawn without breaking crops, but that's like very, very slow. And so basically, if you have too many pests accumulate, then your farming fortune gets absolutely cooked. So you have to like fly around and find the pest and then suck it up with this vacuum. There will only ever be a max of 8 pests, but just being honest, I wouldn't let it get that far. Just suck the pest when you can. I'm pretty certain when it gets to like 3, it doesn't affect your fortune, but once it hits like 4 or 5, it does affect your fortune. As for the vacuum, there's a lot of upgrades you can make. Head to the Skymart, you can upgrade like the version of it. So go to the Skymart here and click pests. You can see that it requires copper to upgrade each vacuum, and at the very end, you can't see it, but it requires something called a chipping stereo. I don't know if I can get that up there. Yeah, chipping stereo. And so you can only get that from like crickets. It's like a really rare drop. So, I don't have it yet, but it exists. The best reforge in my opinion is BD, because it gives you 100 extra farming fortune for vacuums on pests. So I would get that. There is another like reforge, but I wouldn't use it. I'm not even gonna talk about it. Always try to upgrade your vacuum when you can, because you'll literally be using it forever, so you don't have to worry about like sinking resources and then replacing your vacuum or something. Upgrade stack as you buy the vacuum, so don't worry about that. Finally, let's talk about farming contests. So every 40 minutes, there are competitions held for 3 random crops, and for 20 minutes, players compete against each other for medals and Jacob's tickets for prizes at Anita. Anita is this NPC right here. And depending on where you fall in the farming brackets for the amount of crops broken in those 20 minutes, you'll either get a bronze, silver, or gold medal with some Jacob tickets. You can check here that there are brackets for it. Top 10 is gold, top 30 is silver, and top 60 is bronze. And I will say it doesn't matter if you have the crop unlocked or not. It'll still have the competition for it. So if you only have wheat unlocked and the competition is everything but wheat, you kind of have to just like watch it happen. But that isn't really much of a problem, as you unlock the crops pretty fast as you just play the garden. But just letting you know that there will be competitions that you don't have crops unlocked for. So as you can see here, there are varying amounts of Jacob's tickets per competition. So if you get gold, you will get 25 Jacob's tickets and a gold medal. If you hit silver, then you'll get 15 Jacob's tickets and 1 silver medal. And then if you get bronze, you'll get 10 Jacob's tickets and 1 bronze medal. But if you just place any of them, which is like top 60%, you will get 1 of the equivalent book, Turbo Wheat, Turbo Cane. And basically it's just an enchant that applies like the fortune of the specific, crop that it's mentioning. So Turbo Potato, you can stack it up to Turbo Potato 5 for up to 25 extra potato fortune, or you can be Turbo Potato 1 and get 5 potato fortune. These don't stack, you can't all put them onto one weapon. So if you have, the type of book, apply it for the specific tool. Because if you apply multiple types of books to one tool, then it will choose the latest one you use. I will also mention, if you are getting your inventory extremely full, I would look into the wheat collection for the agronomy sacks. Yeah, don't forget those because they make your life much easier. Although it is kind of hard at the start because wheat is pretty hard to get. I'd say for now in the early game, I really would not focus on optimizations because I just want you to get into farming at this point. For now, just focus on getting melon armor. This is unlocked in the melon collection. I believe it is the very final unlock. See if you head over here to the melon collection, it is the melon armor. And each one requires just like a regular crafting recipe for armor, but it's 5 for each slot. And in total, you'll need 120 melons, enchanted melon blocks. So yeah, you unlock melons at garden level 6, and as an Ironman, it is pretty painful. But as a normal profile, it's okay pretty light. You just buy the melons. But for an Ironman, good luck. You'll be farming melons for quite a while. This armor will be built into the best farming armor in the game, so I would say it's really important. I'd also say to give a look at the farmer's boots or rancher's boots, which are absolutely needed prior to the sundial, which I'll get into later. The farmer's boots actually give 1 farming fortune per farming level, which is nice, but the rancher boots give you the ability to control your speed, and extra fortune as well. This is really important because certain crops are almost impossible to farm if you're too fast, which will be a common problem assuming you're progressing normally through the game. Your speed will be way too high. And now that you've gotten to melon armor, let's talk about progressing through the mid-game. Your next armor set will require much more crops, as well as a thing called croppies. Croppies are a rare item that can be dropped upon breaking either wheat, potatoes, or carrots while wearing the melon armor. The percent chance that can be dropped is based on how many pieces of melon armor you have equipped. The minimum amount of melon armor pieces to be able to drop croppies you'll need is 2, while the max is all 4. Logically though, you'll only be able to have 3 because if you are farming correctly, you'll need rancher's boots to be able to control your speed. Now let's talk about equipment. So in the Sky Mart and go to Farming Essentials, you will have 4 pieces of Lotus equipment, with the bracelet being at 50, belt being 100, necklace 200, and a cloak at 500, and you'll unlock them as you progress through the garden. The Lotus equipment gives you more fortune depending on how many visitor offers you've completed. This is not unique visitors, but just total visitor offers. And it gives a pretty decent amount of fortune once you combine all of them. And I'd probably say at this point is where most people give up on farming because I'd recommend to build max efficiency farms. Max efficiency farms are really, really important because they significantly decrease the amount of time required to get all of the crops and items needed to upgrade your profile. Luckily for you guys, I found a very recent channel that creates very, very simple max efficiency farming guides to create their plots, and I promise you they are way easier than any other tutorial you've ever found. This is a very new channel and it doesn't have a lot of traction towards it, but I do recommend it because I really find the tutorials good, and it was honestly the only reason I went into farming again, because I remember trying to create a melon farm on my main profile and I was like, I'm not doing this again. But I saw the video and it was really simple, and it has every single type of farm. So yeah. I also want to mention you'll need an item called the squeaky mouse mat. These are dropped from field mice, and you can buy mouse traps over here at Phillip. Head over to Pest Hunter's Wares and you can buy the pest trap, the mouse trap, and the vermin trap. I would say at the minimum, try to get the mouse trap. It's what I use right now, and honestly from what I've seen, field mice are not really that rare. There's a really small chance of these things dropping, but if you do get one, it's really important. To be honest, I have gotten 4. I don't know if that's normal, but I've had very easy luck finding a bunch of these. And this is really important because the squeaky mouse mat allows you to set your yaw and pitch. It basically means the angle you're farming at. So if you left click on the squeaky mouse mat, it'll snap you to the angle you need. And this is really important because for all the max efficiency farms, they kind of require you to farm at certain angles. So if you don't have this, you can do it manually by holding, clicking F3 and then slowly angling your, but it's just not worth it. Just, I'd focus on this. And if you do have to use it manually, then I'm sorry for your loss, but, very important item to get. Now, I will say for the mid game, this is kind of where we switch to Ironman versus normal profile because the way you handle things, depending on your profile, is completely different. This is because on a normal profile, you should only focus on getting farming levels with high farming wisdom. This is mainly because you can just buy the materials for each armor set and just skip the grind entirely. The main 3 things I'd focus on for getting high farming wisdom is the rabbit pet, a booster cookie, and a god potion. And I guess any other wisdom boosting accessories, but to be honest, in the grand scale of things, they don't really help that much. I would also recommend buying a sundial. I'm not sure if you can use it until you unlock sunflowers, but if you do have a sundial, then you're able to control the speed at which you walk depending on what crop you're breaking, which is kind of broken. This is mainly because you're able to use the entire set of armor instead of having rancher's boots, which then gives you a higher chance of dropping the rare item since, the set bonus is higher. Now, as an Ironman, it's a completely different route. I'd recommend getting the legendary elephant pet, and either give it a yellow or green bandana for the extra fortune. Yellow bandana you can just buy from the Skymart right here, or green bandana, or is it, I think it is green bandana, is a rare drop from visitors. I promise on Ironman, you will hit the levels before you get all the required materials. This is speaking from experience. Simply put though, once you attain the max efficiency farms, again depending on your profile type, it'll just be a matter of grinding all the levels or the materials required for the next armor set. In terms of armor progression, melon armor drops croppies if you farm potatoes, wheat, or carrots, and then you can use the croppies to craft croppie armor. Croppie armor drops squashes from cocoa beans, melons, and pumpkins, in which you can use the squash to create squash armor. The squash armor drops fermento from sugarcane, netherwort, mushrooms, and cactus, and then in turn you can craft squash armor into fermento armor. At this point, assuming you do have fermento armor, I think it's kind of fair to say we're entering endgame progression. So let's talk about the new current best farming armor set in the game, which is called Helianthus. Fermento armor drops Helianthus from wild roses, sunflowers, and moonflowers, the new 3 crops in the game. And fermento armor can upgrade into Helianthus at farming level 50. Now, if you're not at farming 50, that's fine. Let's talk about some small things you can do to try to hit level 50. In regards to getting quick levels in farming, I've heard that farming mushrooms gives you the most EXP per crop broken, and assuming you've gotten pretty far, you can also focus on upgrading your equipment, whether this be in the form of the Blossom set, which is also found in the Skymart. It's just a better version of the Lotus set. There's also 2 items I recommend called the Pest Vest and Zoro's Cape. So the Pest Vest is sold by Talbot during Finnegan's Mare Cycle, and it's sold for 250 pelts. And then Zoro's Cape is found in the Easter Egg event. I also want to mention, if you're tired of like your inventory filling up with a bunch of the random garden stuff you get from like, killing pests or from the competitions, there is a sack called the Garden Sack, which holds all this stuff. And I just wanted to let you guys know in case you weren't aware of that. In regards to ranking really high in competitions, there are some small things you can do to increase your farming fortune. So if you head over to Philip here and you click empty vacuum bag, but if you click this, you gain 200 farming fortune. And then also there's an NPC called Maeve, and if you do her visitor offer, you get a Harvest Harbinger 5 potion, which gives 50 farming fortune for 25 minutes. Your main garden set should have Mossy on it, which is attained from the Overgrown Grass Reforged Stone, a rare offer from visitors that increases your farming fortune, but if not, you can apply Bustling, which is applied with a Skymart brochure at the Skymart. And then the best reforge for your equipment is Rooted, which can be applied using a Burrowing Spore, which is a very rare drop from mushrooms, but if not, you can go over to your visitors and they have a small chance of giving you a Flowering Bouquet, which applies blooming to your equipment. As for the reforge for your tools, there's either Bountiful or Blessed. I just want to note that Bountiful is very hard to get, requiring you to show Jake, an NPC, a Lock Emperor using a summon weapon, which then gives you the option to buy each reforge stone for 1,000,000 coins. There are people on Discords, if you can find them, that are willing to do this for you, but again, it's really not advised. The other reforge is Blessed, which can be attained using a Blessed Fruit, which is sold by the Smithmonger in the hub for 1,000,000 coins. If you're looking to farm a specific pest, you can either put a certain type of bait in the pest traps, or use a sprayinator with a certain type of bait, or use a vinyl on the, let me pause to say this, Infinivacuum Hooverus, which is the final upgrade to the vacuum requiring a chirping stereo and 2,500 copper from Skymart. You can also apply an item called Bookworm's Favorite Book 5 times, a rare drop from Earthworms, onto your vacuum, as you can see are indicated with the +50 yellow text, and with a level 100 Hedgehog pet, you're able to one-shot Earthworms with the highest tier of vacuum. This is a really good quality of life concept that is required if you don't want to go insane fighting the Earthworms. There are also some attribute shards that can improve your garden stats that I'll show on the screen now, which shows how to get them and what they do. So let's move on to the greenhouse. So the greenhouse was introduced in the latest garden update that involves this new building. To unlock it, you'll need to be at least garden level 12 and have talked to the carpenter NPC at some point in the game. He will then show up to your garden and have the greenhouse blueprints as his offer. Upon completing his request, you'll then be able to build a greenhouse on any open plot. There's going to be a very simple tutorial that I don't remember, but it's very quick, and it leads you into getting your first mutation. A mutation is a type of plant that can be created upon the correct conditions, and the carpenter, depending on how far you are into this stuff, shows you how to get them. Basically, for example, I have to plant a pumpkin and a melon adjacent, and it will create something called a gloom gourd. So yeah, there's definitely videos on how to get each one. But it's a kind of a simple, concept to understand. Now, getting into some more niche stuff, There's a pretty tedious quest involving an NPC called Beth that is required to be completed. You can read more about that somewhere else, but upon completing it, you will attain Jake's plushie, an uncommon accessory. Only then will Beth appear one more time after building the greenhouse. She'll ask you to meet at Jake's lab one more time, and you'll complete a little mini-game involving plant analyzing. This lab is located in the Mushroom Desert, where this dude is standing. If I just... Hello. You can break in here, and this is assuming you've, finished the quest already. It'll lead you down here, and you have to head to this bookcase, and then... yeah, crop analyzer. There is a little mini game involving plant analyzing. The first time I played this, I have solvers, so to be honest, I actually have no idea how to do it without solvers. But yeah, you can analyze mutations here, and the first time you analyze a type of mutation, you get a ton of copper. A lot of people don't actually know this, but if you manage to get Jake's contact on the Abaphone, you can just call him and access the crop analyzer through there. Now, looking at the greenhouse, all you see are these slots. Well, in order to increase the amount of slots, you'll need something called an ethereal vine, which has a chance from being dropped from breaking any mutation. The vine's drop rate ranges from 15% to 40%, depending on the mutation's rarity. There's a really good website that I use called skymutations.eu that I'll put on the screen, and it shows you the most optimal slots to unlock, and the best orientation of plants to get the most mutations. I found that Gloomgourd is the best, and this is because it requires only 2 plants to get a mutation. This is my setup so far, and it's the most optimal because it allows for 12 Gloomgourds to spawn in my greenhouse. As for me, I just want the sundial, which requires chloronite, so I'm working on that. And you might not realize it the first time, but you don't actually water the plants. You actually water the dirt under the plant. So like I tried to water it here, and as you can see, it doesn't actually highlight the block. But if you move it a little bit to the right, you can see here that the block gets an outline. So you have to water the block, not the plant. I know that sounds pretty obvious, but like, I don't know, I struggled on it. Again, I really wouldn't recommend doing much in the greenhouse unless you have all of your slots unlocked, which is, what you can see I'm doing here. So focus on getting a bunch of vines you can buy from the bazaar or get it yourself for your Ironman. But yeah, that's basically it for the garden. Oh yeah, you can also like check the stats of your crops, but that's bruh. Now as a part of the greenhouse update, we got something introduced called chips. At garden level 4, you'll speak to an NPC called Jeff. He'll just show up in your garden. He'll give you a short description of chips and what they do, and then he'll give you one. And I'm pretty certain it's called the crop shot chip. You'll have to attain the rest of the chips on your own, but very simply, they give buffs to your garden, and I'll put on screen now their benefits and how to get them. Chips are a very simple concept, but they provide many useful benefits to your garden overall, so I wouldn't recommend skipping over them. It also introduced a new type of, material called sawdust, and you just get it from farming. It takes a total of 250 million sawdust to fully max out this chip thing. It's either 25 million or 250 million, something like that. But yeah, sawdust is very simple to get. You just break any crop and you get some sawdust. So yeah. So now finally, let's get into pest farming. So pest farming is not that hard to do, but I will say that it does require mods. Because if you don't have the mods, then there's like a certain mechanic you can't do, which saves a lot of time pest farming. So I will, let you guys keep that in mind. This can either involve 1 or 2 sets. You'll have one set for when you actually farm the crop, and you'll have a second set that you use when you're about to spawn your pests. You'll need a minimum of 3 auto pet rules, with the pets either being your mushroom cow or elephant, either the slug or the mosquito, and then the hedgehog. Again, it is not worth to pest farm unless you are genuinely maxed out, and this is because of the fact that you'll need to be able to one-shot earthworms, as well as have really high bonus pest chance. It's still good to do even if you don't have max pest chance, but it isn't as good as people say. So to give a small example, as you can see here, as I hold tab, you can see your cooldown says ready. If you farm right now, you will have a chance to spawn pests. Wearing your pest armor set, for me it would be this biohazard set, and it's definitely not optimized. You would wear this set, and it would give you more pest chance, so when you actually do end up spawning these pests, like 4 or 5 of them would spawn. Then you would switch to your hedgehog pet using a rod swap and be able to kill all the pests, as the hedgehog gives you farming fortune for killing pests and also allows you to one-shot the earthworm. You would then go back to your main set, equip your main pet, whether it's an elephant or the, mushroom cow, and continue farming. So essentially, pest farming is just like regular farming, but once you see the cooldown for the pests, you equip your set, spawn the pests, change your pet, kill the pests, and go back to farming. And the reason why I had mentioned that mods are important is due to the concept of the glass ceiling. So the way pest farming works is the pests will spawn at the top of your garden, depending on which plot they spawn in. Now, people will build glass ceilings so that it's easier to see your pests. And if you have an aspect of the void with the ability to do, ether warp, you can warp above the glass ceiling and then catch the pest. And then using a mod like SkyTills, you'll be able to go back to where you had teleported up and then go back to farming. The thing is, without the mod, you can't really teleport back to where you were prior to catching those pests, which is why it isn't as optimal, because again, you'll have to find where you were at the start and then somehow get back to that and then keep farming. And then after you catch the pests from teleporting up, you'll have to go back to that same point, which you can't do without a mod. I don't really do this on my Ironman because I don't have the stats for it, and every time I see an earthworm, I get really sad, so I just farm normally. But again, if your profile is much better than mine, you can definitely do pest farming, and it definitely works. There's no reason you should not be pest farming, so yeah. And for your pest set, the best reforge would be Manded, which can be attained using a Manded Claw, which is a rare drop from Praying Mantis. But yeah, that basically wraps up the end of the video. Again, I put a lot of work into this video, so I'd really appreciate it if you guys subscribed. Also, if you want, you can follow my Twitch down below in the description, as again, I plan to do a ton of Hypixel rank giveaways there, so look out for that. Remember, it is free and it helps me out a lot. I'm trying to get more followers so I can tell my friends that I'm a niche internet celebrity, but yeah. Anyways guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.